Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Poland is facing an unprecedented attempt by Russia to interfere with the upcoming presidential election, said Polish Digital Affairs Minister Krzysztof Gawkowski during the inauguration of the Defence24 Days conference in Warsaw. Our correspondent Don Arlith is at the conference. Don, can you tell us more about the minister's statement and what can we expect in the upcoming election?
Great question, Ben. So yes, during the opening statements here at the Defence24 Days here in the National Stadium in Warsaw, Krzysztof Gawkowski, the Minister of Digitization here in Poland, of course said that we are facing unprecedented threats from Russia, not only to critical infrastructure and electronic warfare and, of course, cyber warfare, but also that they are trying to influence the Polish elections. We all know these elections are highly contested and are coming up very soon. We've seen what's just happened in Romania, and well, therefore, we're waiting to hopefully catch up with the minister to get a little bit more details on exactly how Russia is indeed interfering with these elections. But just to kind of sum up here, during the opening remarks, of course, it was widely said that Russia poses the biggest threat to European security, and of course, in the realm of not only military and security, hard security, but also in the cyber field. We've got these elections coming up, so therefore, well, obviously Russia is trying to influence these elections to a way that they see which will be more beneficial to them. Ben, back to you.
Thank you so much, Don, and please bring us updates as it rolls out. Meanwhile, appreciate it. Friedrich Merz has failed to secure the required majority to become German chancellor in the first round of voting in the Bundestag. Just 310 lawmakers backed the nominee of the three-party coalition made up of the Christian Democrats, the Christian Social Union, and the Social Democrats, falling 6 votes short of the 360 needed. Despite the coalition holding 328 seats, the outcome indicates that some of its own members voted against their candidate. Following the vote, the Bundestag session was suspended. This is the first time an appointed chancellor has failed in the Bundestag vote after an election and successful coalition negotiations. The Bundestag will now have another 14 days to choose either Merz or put forward an alternative candidate for chancellor. Outgoing German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was honored with the Bundestag's traditional grand tattoo ceremony. The event, held at the Ministry of Defense, marked his official departure from office.
The ceremony in Berlin was attended by President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, and other major figures of German politics. At the event, Pistorius thanked Olaf Scholz for guiding Germany through trying times and taking responsibility for the German state. Following the president, Olaf Scholz took to the podium to give his address. The outgoing chancellor wished his successor Friedrich Merz best of luck in his future as the head of German government and appealed to the Germans for unity instead of division.
In June, the European Commission will present a proposal to ban all imports under new Russian gas deals by the end of 2025. The move follows a delay earlier this year as the EU held off on releasing its plan to evaluate the impact of US-led negotiations in the war in Ukraine. Officials in Brussels will propose a ban on all new gas purchase deals with Russia, along with existing spot contracts, by the end of this year. Now, that type of gas markups about 1/3 of the EU's current imports from Russian Federation. Next month, the European Commission is expected to introduce new measures targeting the remaining Russian gas imports still locked into long-term contracts. Russia's share of EU gas imports has already dropped from more than 40% in 2022 to 19% in 2024. Still, the EU continues to rely on Russian LNG. Last year, it brought in a record of 16.65 million tons of the fuel. The results of the first round of Romania's presidential elections are in, but the political turmoil is far from over. Prime Minister Marco Ciolacu resigned on Monday, and the ruling Social Democrats are pulling out of government. The decision follows a poor showing by the coalition's presidential candidate.
Ciolacu announced his resignation Monday after the coalition's candidate, Crin Antonescu, failed to advance in Sunday's presidential election. The Social Democratic Party is also leaving the government, saying it no longer has legitimacy. The PSD won't back either candidate in the May 18th runoff. Meanwhile, its former coalition partners, the National Liberals and the ethnic Hungarian UDMR, are throwing their support behind independent Nicu Jordan, who will face far-right leader George Simion in the second round.
Meanwhile, far-right candidate George Simion is already setting out plans for a new government. The leader of the Alliance for the Union of Romanians says he wants controversial figure Călin Georgescu back in politics.
Simion pledged to put Georgescu, quote, at the head of the country during a post-election visit to Alba Iulia in Transylvania. Georgescu's previous election win was annulled over campaign abuses and alleged Russian support. Simion won nearly 41% of the vote in Sunday's repeat first round, nearly double that of second-place candidate Nicu Jordan, who he'll face in the May 18th runoff. Simion says Georgescu could be installed via referendum, early elections, or a parliamentary majority.
A Russian drone attack killed one person and damaged infrastructure in Ukraine's Odessa region, according to the regional governor, Oleg Kiper. Several fires broke out following the strike, and emergency crews worked through the night to pull them out.
As stated by the Odessa governor on Telegram, one body was found in one of the damaged houses. However, the victim's identity is still being verified. It marks another drone attack in a short span of time, just hours before a Russian strike killed 3 residents and injured 7 others in the Sumy region. At the same time, Moscow authorities claimed that overnight, Russian air defense intercepted 19 drones heading towards the capital. In response to the attack, all 4 of Moscow's major airports were closed for several hours to ensure passengers' safety. It would mark the second night in a row that Ukrainian drones reportedly targeted the Russian capital. The attacks come just days ahead of the Victory Day parade in Moscow and Russia's proposed temporary ceasefire. So far, the Ukrainian government is yet to comment on the alleged drone attack.
Czech President Petr Pavel says the loss of Ukrainian territory can only be seen as temporary. He made the statement during a joint interview with his Ukrainian counterpart. Pavel also emphasized that European presence at the negotiating table is crucial, as officials will be discussing not only security in Ukraine, but in Europe as a whole.
It is impossible to advise anyone how to proceed in the temporary recognition that they cannot liberate their entire territory. My position has always been, and I have communicated it in this way to our Ukrainian friends, that the loss of territory can only be seen as temporary, because under the current conditions, restoring Ukraine's full sovereignty and territorial integrity would mean a continuation of the conflict and many thousands more lives, both military and civilian. So, some compromise, knowing that part of sovereign Ukrainian territory may be temporarily occupied by foreign powers, is probably part of the solution. But how much of it is really up to the Ukrainians in particular and to negotiations with Russia. I would perhaps just say that the presence of European, but also perhaps North American allies in various forms in the negotiations is important, because we are not just talking about peace between Russia and Ukraine, we are talking about security in Europe, and Ukraine is an integral part of Europe's security.
U.S. President Donald Trump says many already know who was behind the Nordstream pipeline explosion, adding that he, quote, blew up the project first through sanctions. Trump also repeated his view that Russia wants peace and praised the Kremlin's proposed 3-day ceasefire.
Asked whether he will begin an investigation into who blew up the natural gas pipeline connecting Russia and Germany, Trump said there was no need. According to the U.S. president, it is as simple as questioning a few people, and there is no need to waste money on expensive inquiries. Additionally, Trump claims he was the one to at least metaphorically blow up the pipeline with sanctions he introduced during his first term in the White House.
A bus reportedly carrying American soldiers crashed in the Lower Silesia region of Poland on Monday. 8 people were injured.
Late Monday night, the vehicle drove off the A4 motorway, crashed, and ended up on its side. Some 30 people were on board, including American soldiers who were traveling from Germany to Lithuania. The bus also carried Romanian tourists. Over 20 firefighter crews, 2 ambulances, and a helicopter responded to the accident. Reportedly, 4 individuals injured in the accident were transported to a nearby hospital.
Columbia University has announced the winners of the 2025 Pulitzer Prizes, the top honors in American journalism, and recipients include journalists from the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times. The Washington Post staff won in the breaking news category for their coverage and analysis of the July 13th assassination attempt on Donald Trump. The National Reporting Prize went to the Wall Street Journal for its in-depth reporting on Elon Musk, focusing on his political shift, drug use, and communications with Vladimir Putin. The New York Times' Declan Walsh and his team won the International Reporting Award for their investigation into the Sudan conflict, uncovering foreign influence, the gold trade's role in the violence, and military responsibility for atrocities. The Times also won in another category. Photographer Doug Mills received the Pulitzer for breaking news photography for his images of the Trump assassination attempt. And regarding the election results in Germany, we had an opportunity to ask Maria Skora, a research associate at one of the institutes in Berlin, about the latest developments in the German Bundestag. He shares his insight on today's event and what we can expect to happen next.
Although it's actually a good question where this defeat is coming from, as you rightfully pointed out. Merz fell really short of the needed majority of 316 votes. He got 310. And since it's a secret ballot, we don't actually know what happened within this coalition. Most probably something in the coalition, because CDU, CSU, and SPD together, they have 328 seats. So theoretically, easily, they should have gotten this required majority. Well, that didn't.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.